When you see the den of the damned, it's often the case that you see I'll just use the term whore lord. That's right, a whore lord creates what's called a whoredom. The King James Bible uses the term whoredom. And what this whore lord will do is this whore lord will basically cause these super defiled damned people to be divided, because since they're so hedonistic, meaning since they seek after pleasure so much, these zombies and these robots, what they'll often do is they'll have a lot of envy and selfishness, and they'll have a lot of bad moral qualities. And so what the whore lord that's over them has to do is he has to keep them divided. He has to use evil and dishonest tactics in order to reap the benefit out of them. He has to pit them against each other. He has to cause there to be strife, just in order for them not to just sink into a total laziness, where they don't do anything at all. And he has to do all this kind of whore lord behavior just in order to keep these people productive at something, because they're so evil and defiled, and they wouldn't be productive on their own. And so, this is the kind of activity that a lot of times you get into with a den of the damned. And you get this situation where there's just this venom, so to speak, just call it this venom, that just sort of goes out in every which direction. And so, let's just give an example. Let's say, you're new to a church, or you're new to a workplace, or you're new to a school, or you're new to something, some sort of social organization. And you go in there, and it's a den of the damned. Then you may have people that have been there longer, that instead of making intercession for you, teaching you, training you, instead of, giving you the helping hand, instead they're plotting against you from day one, because you're their enemy, and they want to strike out at you. And so they might do it emotionally. They might do it through various psychological tactics, and they might even try to tear you down and try to promote themselves at the same time, because they feel inferior to you, because you might take their seat of authority. You might push them off the piano bench at church and start playing, for example. Or you might be in school, and these people might have friends that suddenly like the new person instead of themselves, and so let's say the guy that's the whore lord that has all these friends, so-called friends, suddenly doesn't have any friends because all these guys are looking at the new guy. Causes selfishness, strife to really emerge, causes jealousy. And based upon this jealousy, actions do occur. The venom goes out. And a lot of times, what you see maybe with the whore lord is you see this this case where they may use rules, regulations, the law, whatever the case may be, not to benefit society, but to benefit themselves. And so they'll read into the rule book, so to speak, what they want to read into the rule book against you, to attack you, to get you, to nail you. And they'll do this because you pose a threat to them, and you might not have the same knowledge of this rule book, so to speak. And the reason why you don't is because you're new to it, whereas they're more experienced. And when you see this kind of activity in society on a larger scale, like on the governmental scale, or like in a scale where you really can't escape it, where you can't just go to a different church or work somewhere else, or where you can't just do something else, then to avoid it, then what happens is you get into the situation where you're oppressed no matter what, because of this whoredom. And basically, if you look at the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments are very, very clear in the fact that a person should not covet their neighbor's wife or their neighbor's household goods or anything like that. It's very clear even that if a guy's animal, beast of burden, falls down and he's your enemy, that you should go out and help him. From the later law, that is. And with this kind of idea, it is clear that the law of Moses was actually put together in such a way as to reduce whoredoms and to eliminate the power of whorelords. It was put together in such a way that these kind of issues shouldn't have ever been a problem. But because obviously people had evil desires, they were. And sometimes these whorelords know about these kind of issues, and they try to encourage evil desires. They try to encourage people to be envious, to be strifeful, in order to increase competition between people, in order that the snare of the devil could be used in their favor, so that they could continue to have a whoredom over these people. And quite frankly, it is a very sick kind of activity. Now, what's very clear, at least to me, is one of the ways that whoredoms are eliminated is through acts of kindness, through doing healing, through extending oneself to invest their talents. And quite frankly, this could have been the very reason why, when Jesus did healings, the religious leaders of his time wanted to come out and strike him, to come out and nail him, because these people were operating whoredoms. They were what I'd call whorelords, and they wanted to basically have all this power, this demonic kind of power over people. Well, somebody is kind of like a government, let's say, that limits the amount of seeds that farmers can plant, and tells people that there's not enough seeds to go around. And so let's say the government basically gives people just a few seeds in order to continue to have their power of evil over people. Well, what happens when somebody just goes to that country and just starts out giving out seeds, Well, that guy that just starts giving out seeds is obviously going to be loved by the people, is going to be hated by the government, and the government is going to go out and nail him, and the people won't often do anything about it because the government keeps the people divided so that they can't go out and do something about it. Well, that's what I call a whoredom. And that the government over that whoredom is what I call a whorelord. And you see this kind of activity in what are called predatory nations. A predatory nation is a nation that, instead of being for justice for the people, and instead of being there for the people's sake, they might be there for, let's say, the revenue from foreign oil, from selling oil from that nation to other lands. They may import foreign labor into that land to harvest this oil. And they may want to try to confuse the people, because the people don't really produce anything for the government anyway. Might just try to confuse the people and their property rights and stuff like that. Turn the people against each other, so the people don't even know that the natural resources of the land are being extracted, or at least they can't really pay much attention to it because they're just trying to struggle to survive. And so when you see this kind of activity, it's a very super evil kind of thing. It just strikes out entirely against what the law of Moses supports. The laws of God actually are for.